What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, the Knicks lose, man, to the Hawks, and I gotta say, I'm not surprised, man. I just think that I just think that, in my opinion, I just think that Jalen Brunson is just too small of he's just too small to be your number one. Jalen Brunson, a really good basketball player, but he's not. The further and the deeper that he get into the playoffs, the more trouble he has scoring. You know, especially in the half court, because once teams slow down, and he's not that he's a fast break type basketball player, but you slow him down and you stay in front of him and you make him have to shoot over guys who are taller and more athletic, and he just wears down. He has to work so hard to get a shot off, and so that's what the Knicks are up against when you have Jalen Brunson being your number one, right? Then you got Cat, who is Carl Anthony Towns, who like he kind of wishy washy. Like some games he come up big, some games he is like he's not even out there on the court. So that's another issue for the Knicks, right? And so, and I just said this from day one. I don't think the Knicks are going have what it takes to get them, to the big game. So, and if you watch the last game where they played against the Hawks, man, the Atlanta Hawks, man, they were seeking out Jalen Brunson, and I think CJ McCollum even alluded to this. Like they look forward to when this little guy Jalen Brunson had a basketball, because they can defend him better. And you have to remember, in the playoffs they're allowed to play a little bit more physical, and some of the calls that Brunson got during the regular season, he not gonna be able to get those calls, right? And coming down the stretch, man, like the Hawks just look forward to Jalen Brunson having the ball. They played him physical. They even got him to turn the ball over in a crucial stage in the game. So the Atlanta Hawks, man, are not really they're not afraid of this Knicks team at all. And somebody else who agree with me is Rob Parker, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play some audio from Rob Parker's show, and I want to piggyback off of some of what he said about Jalen Brunson and the Knicks and what he think about their performance against the Hawks.
Kelvin, we watched them choke down a big time game against the Indiana Pacers in the
Yep.
opener of that. What was that? The second round, right? Because that was to get to the conference finals.
Yep.
They choked that down. Last night, they're cruising, trying to go up 2-0 against the Atlanta Hawks, and then the Knicks turned into the Knicks. Instead of passing the basketball around, getting everybody involved, they started playing Rob G. hero ball, and guess what? They lost.
Yeah, tough scene for the New York Knickerbockers. They're up by 14 in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, you mentioned they collapsed. They scored 15 points there in the final frame, which allowed CJ McCollum and the Atlanta Hawks to steal game two, even the series heading back to Atlanta. And you mentioned it, all signs right now pointing to the Knicks star point guard, Jalen Brunson. Not only has his shot been wayward since the first quarter of game one, he was 8 of 11 in that first quarter. The 7 quarters since then, he's 11 of 37. But CJ McCollum even said after the game, yeah, you know what, come crunch time, I was hunting Jalen Brunson as much as possible. I liked the matchup that we had. Long story short, Hawks win game two.
Kelvin,
Just imagine like that. CJ McCollum said that I was hunting Jalen Brunson. Like, when do you have your number one guy on the team? They usually want to keep the ball out of the number one's hands. They don't want him to touch the ball because they fear what he can do. And so it's kind of, it makes it obvious when people are telling you that, yeah, we wanted him to have the ball. We was hunting him on both ends of the court. Both ends of the court. That's not something you want to hear about your number one, the guy that you looking to lead you to the in these playoffs.
start here. It was not that long ago. There was a poll, one of the sports stations in New York, and I think it was like SNY, right? Sports New York or whatever, which is the Mets are the prime occupant on that station. The Yankees are on Yes, the Mets are on SNY. And they did this poll, and I saw it on social media, and they asked who was the best player in New York. And this was last year. Jalen Brunson was on the list ahead of Aaron Judge. Like seriously. Last year what did we watch, Kelvin? One of the greatest offensive years by a right-hander hitter we've ever seen, right? He beat out a catcher with 60 home runs who had never done that in the history of baseball, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
And Jalen Brunson was the guy. I get it. The Knicks have been irrelevant for a long time. The Yankees have continued to win. I know they haven't won a World Series in a long time, but they're always in the mix, Kelvin. They're always going to the playoffs, right? They always have a high standard. The Knicks have been downtrodden for a long time, and here comes little Jalen Brunson and his braids and his shots and going to the basket and all these other things, and the Knicks became relevant, and they went to the chance to go to Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Remember, they lost to Indiana, and then, of course, we saw what happened last year with a chance to go to the finals, right? And I'm convinced more than ever they're not going to get there. They're not going to win a championship with Jalen Brunson being your main guy. The guy you're hoping that a little guy is going to be able to get you where you want to go, and I'm just not sure that can happen. We've seen it twice. We've only seen it twice. Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry. If you can name me others, then I'll say okay.
As the real pro.
And so what I want to say about that, that's true. You've seen it with Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry, right? And so what's different about them is Isaiah Thomas played with the bad boy Pistons, and their defense was just so physical and so disruptive. They had to basically play a whole nother style in order for these guys to have some success. And when you look at Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry, he revolutionized the game with his three-pointers. So you got to do something different besides being just a small guy. Bring something else to the table. Like small guys just not going to be able to get it done, like I said, because you can always put a bigger, faster, more athletic guy in front of them and make them shoot tough shots. And so that's what sets Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas apart. Now, if this New York Knicks team played exceptional defense and they was exceptional, they held the score down because of their defense, then the Knicks might have a better chance of going, making it all the way because their defense is exceptional. Like what Isaiah Thomas was, their defense was, in the 80s. Or if you had somebody who could shoot like Steph Curry did, you surround this guy with some exceptional shooters. You got to have something to offset the fact that this is a little guy who is a liability at both ends of the court the further you go into the playoffs.
Primary guys, no, you're right.
As a primary, this is what I'm talking about, primary, not on a team, but Isaiah Thomas led the Pistons, right? The bad boy Pistons.
Without a doubt.
All right, Steph Curry's their main guy there. We know Kevin Durant won 2, but Steph Curry also won 2 where he was the main guy.
Right.
I just don't see it. And we keep saying whenever they go to hero ball and he's the hero, they get a 0. And that's what happened last night. You know, in New York, we call sometimes a sub sandwich a hero.
Y'all do.
Jalen Brunson is a 0 when it comes to trying to win you a championship. I've seen enough. I've seen plenty of these episodes. Last year was unbelievable when they lost that game to Indiana. Me and you sat here in the studio with our mouths wide open because we couldn't believe it.
That's
and
true.
Last night was another one. If you're a Knicks fan, you threw up in your mouth. It was awful.
Well, I hear what you're saying about the smaller guards, and history has shown that to be very difficult, right? Isaiah Thomas goes to 3 straight finals, wins 2. You got, obviously, you mentioned Steph Curry's resume. And Allen Iverson gets to a final, but ran up against peak Shaq and Kobe, so he had no shot there. The thing that I will offer you, Rob, for me, is I think the combination can't get it done. I think Cat and I think also Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson together, that combo ain't happening. And the reason I say that is when Jalen Brunson is going, he ends up being very isolated, right? Like you mentioned, hero ball, he's going, and he's been Mr. Clutch. He's voted Mr. Clutch by, the league and all that stuff. And you saw last night, the Hawks take a lead, bow, he hits a three, get him back in one. Hawks take another lead, bow, he hits another three, gets him right back in it. And so you have the situation to me where Jalen Brunson gets going, the crowd's going, and the Knicks fans going, go, New York, go, whatever y'all say, and everybody's loving it. The issue is Cat becomes irrelevant. Cat becomes, he's just out there. He becomes a spectator, essentially, just like all of us. And I think.
So what I would say to that is, again, Cat, that's Cat issue, right? He's only irrelevant if he allowed himself to be irrelevant, because basketball, and that's like what Charles Barkley said about Cat. Like, he don't know how to play the game. It's more to basketball than just scoring. So if Jalen Brunson is having his way and things are going right for him, like, there's still some things on the court that Karl Anthony Towns can do to help that situation. You can still go, you can still rebound, you can set picks. But you can't, if you Karl Anthony Towns, you just can't stand there and wait for it's your turn to get in the mix. So now, because if you do that, you make it easier to stop your man that's high. When Brunson is cooking and you just standing around, you giving him his space to operate, you should be setting picks. You should be, getting rebounds. You should be doing things, and that's just on the offensive end, right? Just do things to keep this momentum going in your team's way. Because if you just standing there, now your man can divert some of his attention to slowing down Brunson, right? And Brunson is working hard to get a shot off, and now they're going to sag off for you to play to help out on Brunson. So yeah, I wouldn't want Karl Anthony Towns my number 2 or number 1, because he don't know how, like Charles Barkley said, he don't know how to play the game of basketball, man. It's more to it on the offensive end. You got to stay active. You got to pull your man away from the action. It's just so much things he can do, but they don't think about that. He just waiting for his opportunity to get into the mix and prove that he can perform in the playoffs. And I think the Atlanta Hawks, man, they because CJ McCollum is a professional scorer, man, this guy, they are very dangerous. The Atlanta Hawks are very dangerous, and if New York lose to them, it'll be their own fault. But you got to put a team like the Hawks out there. They got this veteran playing with these young guys, and they are, they gain some confidence. They are very dangerous. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I'm going to check y'all out in the next video. Peace.